Warning, censorship. Warning, censorship.
You're saying that the public health orders override Criminal Code 176?
But that's why we can't let you in then, because the Code 176 makes it illegal for you to interrupt a worship service. And our worship service has begun, and we're stating that to you very clearly, that your presence in this building will be interrupting our worship service.
How so?
Because your presence intimidates our people.
That's your perception. Like I said, it's not that we're here to interrupt anything, and
But you will
don't.
be. And it's not an interpretation. You will be. It's a fact. You will be interrupting.
Again,
we are standing firm on the Criminal Code 176 that protects these rights.
So at the end of the day, the Public Health Act says we have access to go in the building.
Okay.
If you don't want us to go in the building, that's fine, but you're accepting the fact you're denying us access to the building. Okay? So if you deny access to the building, there's potential for criminal charges.
Walk behind me, Sheila Gunn Reid for Rebel News here at Grace Life Church west of Edmonton, Alberta. Now this is the first Sunday since the pastor here, Pastor James Coates, was released from provincial custody after spending 35 full days in a maximum security facility for violating a public health order. Now Coates was first taken into custody February 16th for failing to comply with an undertaking that would require him to limit his congregation to 15% of fire code capacity. That order also would force the congregation to wear masks and require them to social distance. Now, these measures are something that Coates and the congregation here say would violate their ability to practice their faith in the way that they see fit. Now, it's the beginning of Holy Week, the most important week of the Christian calendar. The church here was at 619 people, which is 100% of fire code capacity, as it has been pretty well consistently since Coates was first taken into custody. Now, Coates was released when a deal was struck between Coates' lawyers from the Justice Center for Constitutional Freedoms and the Crown that would see the public health charge dropped, a second public health charge proceeding to trial in May, and the criminal charge of failure to comply with that undertaking, now that's the one that landed Coates in jail in the first place, resolved with just a $100 fine and 1 day served in jail, which Coates had naturally already served. He actually served 34 extra ones. However, the justice who had to sign off on the deal, Justice Jeffrey B. Champion, increased the financial penalty to $1,500 because apparently 35 days in jail that Pastor Coates had already served, well, I guess that, according to the judge, was not a deterrent enough. Now, today has been an exciting day. The media presence was quite heavy, which is strange given that media interest has waned in the past few weeks, but maybe the media knew something was going to happen today, and we'll get to that in a second. The mainstream media brought a total of 6 security guards with them, and they all stood, as they normally do, in the ditch off of church property because, unlike me, they are not allowed on. Now, to be clear, this church has engaged in completely peaceful resistance to the public health orders to the point where their pastor was imprisoned for weeks. This congregation isn't violent. It isn't a threat to anybody. What we saw from the media was just public victimhood theater from a mainstream media that seems almost purposeful in its misunderstanding of Christianity. I mean, what are they truly afraid of? Bibles and bake sales? This congregation prays for its enemies and for those who incarcerated their pastor every single week. I know, because I've been here. Now, just as service was starting, and just as Pastor Coates made his return to the pulpit to offer an opening prayer, 2 RCMP officers from the local detachment and an Alberta Health Services inspector came onto church property to demand that they be able to enter the church to inspect it. But that would have been a violation of Canadian law. You see, impeding a church service in this country is contrary to Section 176(2) of the Canadian Criminal Code. And the law there uses the language willfully disturbs or disrupts. Now, the church elders here, they were firm but Christian in their kindness. They were not disrespectful or unkind to the cops or the AHS inspector, but they were not allowing anybody into their church services. This is the most important week in the Christian calendar, and yet bureaucrats were here to disrupt it. Take a look.
Are you telling us that the public health orders override Criminal Code 176?
I'm not here to debate that.
Okay.
I'm here to do a job under the
But
Alberta
you
law.
entering the building would
Okay,
determine that is
So
overridden?
now, see, we're getting into a debate.
No, I'm asking a question. I'm trying to get an answer.
Again, I'm not here to debate those things. Those are things that
Okay.
can be debated in court.
Okay. So-
and I'll let the lawyers and the judges make that call.
So I
Okay?
guess, though, by
So-
you guys going inside, you would be saying that
You're guilty of interrupting a worship
No,
service.
I'm not saying that.
no, but you're saying that the public health orders override Criminal
I'm not
Code
saying that either.
176.
But that's why we can't let you in then, because the Code 176 makes it illegal for you to interrupt a worship service. And our worship service has begun, and we're stating that to you very clearly, that your presence in this building will be interrupting our worship service.
How so?
Because your presence intimidates our people.
That's your perception.
Well, no.
No, no, and again, it's
So-
not about perception. Our people understand that you guys, and again, we respect the work that you do in the community. We respect you as police officers, but in our worship service right now, people are praying, people are singing, people are listening to the Word of God be preached, and they can't do that with your presence in the building.
And with all due respect, the law has now put our pastor in prison. And so for the RCMP to come into the service, it is absolutely a disruption. We have seen the arm of law enforcement come against us. So to come in our building is absolutely intimidation at this point.
That's why we can't let you in.
Once again, I'm sorry you feel that way, but you have to understand that we also have a job to do. Right?
Yeah.
We do.
Okay.
We
So
do.
under that authority, that's why we're here.
Okay.
We're not here to go up and down the aisles. We're not here to
But
interrupt the
you actually
service.
will be.
No, we
when
won't.
when you go inside, you will see that you will be.
Our people are sitting right there. Like,
Okay. Again,
and our
we're-
service has now, we are officially started.
right now we have. 'cause
Yeah.
We've wasted time here.
It
We
would
was
have
started
been-
before that, but now he's in the pulpit.
We were already praying and singing.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's in the pulpit now.
I haven't been in, so I don't know what it's like. But
Yeah.
like I said, it's not that we're here to interrupt anything. And
But you will
don't.
be. And it's not an interpretation. You will be. It's a fact. You will be interrupting.
Again-
We are standing firm on the Criminal Code 176 that protects these rights.
Yep. I'm sorry you feel that way. Again, that is not our intent. Okay. And if there's no intent, then
Well, I don't think intent
okay,
is what.
intent is what it comes down to.
No,
it does
it-
come down to that. Yes.
Well, no, because the moment you walk in the door, you're interrupting our worship
Right.
service, and that's very clear in the criminal code.
What's also clear is intent. So there has to be a reason for somebody to do something. It's called mens rea. Okay, so if someone wants to cause property damage, they have to want to cause property damage for a reason.
Yeah.
If they do it by accident,
So can I ask what
Then
your
it's
intent?
not.
What is your intent then?
like the inspector had stated, I'll let him say
Okay.
why he's here. I don't want to speak for him.
Okay.
We're only here on his behalf.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
not
we
here under-
recognize that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very good.
So what is the intent?
I'm here today just to observe the service
Okay.
and just to observe the compliance with the orders.
What's your name, sir?
My name is Dragan.
Dragon?
Okay.
My name's Rob.
Nice to meet you.
Yeah.
Scott.
Yeah.
So
And
there is
again,
no other intent.
yeah. No, but again, with that intent, it will interrupt our worship service.
We don't have intent to interrupt your service, like we would.
I think there's nothing inside that you're going to see that you can't see clearly from out here with the amount of cars in the parking lot. So again, I would ask, why do you need to be in the building versus what you've seen with the amount of people that have come into our building from outside?
I would need to observe your compliance with 15% capacity.
I think you can count, just by counting the cars, you can tell we're not compliant, and so that's why I'm saying you can't come in.
Compliance with masking and physical distancing.
And again, I would say with witnessing people that are, that have stood outside and people over there you can witness without coming into the building, that same thing.
I would rather observe from inside rather than just assume
Yeah.
what's going on inside.
Well, no, you're not assuming because you can see there's people not social distancing
And you
and
can see the
masking,
cars.
and you can count the cars in the
There's
parking
no
lot.
assumptions.
There's no assumptions there. And with your own testimony and they're witnessing that, you don't need to come inside the building.
Another thing is, under the Public Health Act, we have the right to enter at any reasonable time, any place of business.
Under the Health Act you do, but not under the Criminal Code
Under the
176.
Public Health Act.
Yeah, which doesn't override. So I think based on what I've said, being reasonable, you can observe everything you need to outside the building, and that way you don't interrupt our service, and you still get your observations. And I think that's still factual, because like I said, any amount of, if there's more than 93 vehicles in this parking lot, the vehicles don't drive themselves, so therefore it's reasonable to assume that there's 93 people minimum.
Again, we can't assume.
So at the end of the day, the Public Health Act says we have access to go in the building. If you don't want us to go in the building, that's fine, but you're accepting the fact you're denying us access to the building. Okay? So if you deny access to the building, there's potential for criminal charges or potential for additional charges.
Yeah.
So that being said, we're going to respect the fact that you guys don't want us to go to the church. We're not going to go into the church.
Okay.
We're going to stay outside and we'll observe the numbers as they come.
Okay, thank you.
Okay? So then there's no then there's no further interaction.
Yeah.
Disruption.
Thank you.
Are you satisfied with that?
Very much so, yeah. If you can observe from outside.
Now, even though the church elders were threatened with a criminal charge by the RCMP, they did not budge. And that makes sense. They've got a pretty great example of how to hold firm in their pastor, Pastor Coates. Now, I mentioned briefly that Pastor Coates did give the opening prayer to the service here today, but he did not do any preaching, as understandably he spent the whole week catching up with his wife and his sons, and he wasn't able to prepare a sermon. Associate Pastor Jake Spence gave the sermon today, and once again it was so busy that people were tuning in on the live stream in their cars, in the parking lot, and there were tents set up outside so that people could listen over loudspeakers. Once again, after church services wrapped up, there were normal people doing normal things, gathering together in Christian fellowship. There were conversations over coffee with no masks on. People were smiling, hugging, praying. There were kids playing outside. Once again, ruining their little church clothes. This remains one of the most normal places in the entire province, maybe the entire country, in these abnormal COVID times. If you want to feel what it was like before the coronavirus health regulations stole from us normal human interactions, might I suggest you visit Grace Life Church or one of the other churches advertising themselves as open at openalbertachurches.com. For Rebel News here at Grace Life Church on the very first Sunday since Pastor Coates' release from provincial custody, I'm Sheila Gunn Reid. If you've received a lockdown ticket, I don't want you to pay it. I want you to fight it. Send it to us at fightthefines.com. And if we think your case has merit, we'll put you in touch with a top criminal lawyer at no cost to you. Again, that website is fightthefines.com.